How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists across the fruited plain. Merry Christmas to you. It is the 12th day of Christmas. Happy New Year. We have a great deal to get to. It is Eric Erickson across the fruited plain. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Thank you, Mr. President, for at least waiting until this weekend to begin the invasion of Venezuela. My kids on Saturday, I got two teenagers. They slept in. I finally texted them about 1 o'clock. You guys, the president of the United States has invaded and conquered another country and captured its leader, and you people are still in bed. Will's gay speech in Stranger Things lasted longer than the invasion of Venezuela, and I'm not making that up. The I'm gay speech in Stranger Things lasted 6 minutes and 50 some odd seconds. The invasion of Venezuela lasted 6 minutes and 5 seconds. It took some kid longer to come out of the closet when we all knew he was gay than to capture Maduro. It was an amazing military success. This is the president of the United States from when it happened the other day, his press conference. Donald Trump's press conference about the invasion of Venezuela lasted longer than the actual invasion of Venezuela. This is the president.
Okay, thank you very much. This is big stuff, and we appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites.
That was the president. It got good from there. Of course, there was a question about not telling Congress in advance.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved.
Sure. We called members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of two indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
By the way, you should note someone from within this presidential administration leaked to the New York Times and the Washington Post, both of which decided, because the operation was beginning, not to report it lest it endanger the lives of American soldiers, sailors, and airmen. Yeah, that actually, Semaphore, if you get the show notes, say, I did the show notes myself. Philip is somewhere on the beach in Miami smoking a cigar as I'm talking. And so I did the show notes myself today instead of just sending him all the links. And one of the very first links in the link list is the Semaphore story that people leaked from the administration. From inside the Pentagon, someone clearly trying to jeopardize the operation from inside the administration. We don't know who, but the media chose not to run with the story. Also, one more from this press conference from Rubio, who's kind of the darling right now. He's all over the place. The Washington Post did a story, the Wall Street Journal did a story on the planning for this operation. You know whose name is not mentioned? Vance, apparently not involved at all. He was in the White House and in Cincinnati, says they were in communication, wasn't actually involved in the operation. People close to the vice president's office say that he was not a fan of doing this, much more of an isolationist than Rubio. Here's one more with Rubio and Trump.
He is a fugitive of American justice with a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But
don't let anybody claim it. Nobody deserves it but us.
Nobody deserves it but us. Trump should get the $50 million himself, I guess. And by the way, I got to give the president some credit for just being very blunt about this in a way that many of you may not appreciate. And I want to dive into this, but this is the president from Air Force One.
And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild their system. They're going to spend billions of dollars, and they're going to take the oil out of the ground, and we're taking back what they stole. Remember, they stole our property. It was the greatest theft in the history of America. Nobody has ever stolen our property like they have. They took our oil away from us. They took the infrastructure away. And all that infrastructure is rotted and decayed. And the oil companies are going to go in and rebuild it. We're not going to spend very much money at all, if anything. But the oil companies are going to go, we're going to take our oil back. But we're going to also do things that, when you look at what he did, the drugs are terrible, but also terrible. He sent hundreds of thousands of people into our country that should not be here. And that means from prisons. That means Tren de Aragua, the gang, Tren de Aragua, that comes out of Maduro's country. He was very friendly with that gang. Well, they're having a hard time right now. You know, we had Tren de Aragua all over Washington, D.C., and they got the hell beat out of them. Washington, D.C. is the safest city right now in the United States. Thank you very much,
President, if you had to sum up.
By the way, he's right. There's a report out from National Public Radio that crime has collapsed in Washington, D.C., Memphis as well. We're not talking about the successes of the Trump administration. They need to talk about them. But on this particular issue, I don't know that most Americans know the history here. I happen to know the history. You know, kind of an oil brat. My dad worked for Conoco Oil for years. Exxon, Chevron, and Conoco were invited into Venezuela by Hugo Chavez. And he politely asked them, in exchange for running the Venezuelan oil operation, would they please rebuild what had collapsed? And the American oil companies went into Venezuela and they found the oil patches. They dug the holes in the ground. They put in the piping and they built the oil rigs. Not only that, they built the supply infrastructure to get the oil from the oil rigs to the ports. They built the port. They built the export facilities for the port. And once they had built everything, Hugo Chavez threw the Americans out, executed the leadership inside Venezuela, and took it all over for himself. He literally did steal massive oil operations from American oil companies. And now Maduro has been working with the Chinese, Russian, and Iranian navies to train the Venezuelan Navy to invade Guyana via river to take more American oil. There's a massive field in Guyana that Chevron and Hess have the power over and control over and deals over, and Venezuela has been preparing to invade that oil section. So, yeah, this is to a degree about oil. You may not like it, but it is. Not only that, did you know that Venezuela has given land to Hezbollah? So there's an island off the coast of Venezuela called Margarita Island. It used to be a prime golf resort. In fact, the very first time I ever read about it, I think I was in law school, and I was reading some magazine article about Margarita Island, and essentially its nickname is Orgy Island. I'm not making that up. It's a golf resort where men from Europe would go, and basically they would play golf for a week with prostitutes who would supply Venezuelan cocaine to them. There was an entire expose about this immaculate golf course and the debauchery that men from Europe would get up to. It was becoming an notorious place in Europe that women, when their men would go on golf holidays, would make sure they weren't going to Venezuela because they would know where they were going. Well, Chavez and Maduro didn't like the reputation of the island, and they gave it to Iran. Yes, they gave the island, Margaret Island, a golf resort that was a debauched golf resort. They gave it to Iran, which set up shop for drone operations. The Iranians and Hezbollah have been building drones in Venezuela and running money laundering operations in Venezuela on this island. We bombed it on the way out of Venezuela the other night. We blew up the drone facility that the Iranians were using to manufacture drones to ship where? Ukraine, among other places. It was an impressive military operation. We have set back Iran. By the way, Iran is in full revolt today. We'll get to that. Iran is in full revolt. Venezuela's leadership is gone. Its leader's replaced, and Marco Rubio is looking super, super leaderly. You know, bizarrely, Margaret Brennan, who is increasingly exposing herself as not a very bright person, runs Face the Nation, had Marco Rubio on, wanted to know why Marco Rubio and Donald Trump didn't launch multiple operations and stuff. So keep in mind, this was a law enforcement operation. And for those of you screaming about precedent, Ronald Reagan did this in Grenada. George H.W. Bush did this against Noriega in Panama in 1989. You had Bill Clinton went into Haiti, all without prior authorization from Congress, all for law enforcement situations. You may not like the precedent. You may not think it's a good precedent, but the precedent is there, and Congress isn't going to do anything. In fact, you've got Chris Murphy out there crying about this, what an injustice this is. In the first Trump term, Chris Murphy was one of the members of the United States Senate demanding that Donald Trump do something to Nicolas Maduro. Now that Donald Trump has done something, he's like, this is unconstitutional. This is unlawful. This is illegal. It is political opportunism, and you do need to know, if you're a Democrat upset about this, you're just wrecked by Trump derangement syndrome. In the first Trump administration, all you people wanted him to stop Maduro. He built an international coalition to stop Maduro. It was at the end of his administration. It did not get finalized. The Organization of American States bought into the ouster of Nicolas Maduro. And then what happened? Joe Biden came in, thought he knew better, decided to rebuild it in his own image, and the whole thing collapsed. Joe Biden in 2020 tweeted that Donald Trump was like Nicolas Maduro and would prop up the dictator, who is right now, as I'm talking to you, in Manhattan federal court under indictment doing his arraignment. He has just, as I'm talking to you, said, quote, I'm innocent, I'm not guilty. He just said that. He could have said that during the Biden administration, but Joe Biden liked to talk big, but he couldn't carry a big stick without tripping over it. Donald Trump just took a major player in narco-terrorism and a key player in the China-Russia-Cuba axis off the table. 60 Cubans were killed in the operation. They were providing security. Why? Because in exchange, Cuba got Venezuelan oil to prop up the communist regime there. and they don't have that oil anymore. The Cuban government is one of the biggest losers in this whole operation today. This was a very good thing that Donald Trump did.
Y'all, I'm not a New Year's resolution guy. I never have been, but I have resolved, I guess you could say, before the New Year's to just drink more water. It's good for you. And I buy bottled water for the office, but I finally broke down and I bought a Cove Pure. So if you don't know what it is, it's an incredible machine. It's got technology that's certified to remove 99.9% of contaminants from the water. It gets rid of PFAs, microplastics, pharmaceutical residue, fluoride. It gets everything removed. It's the purest water you can get, and you just pour tap water in the back and let the filters do the work, and it just works. When I used it for the first time, I didn't realize you could heat up the water. You can chill the water. You can just have regular tap water at room temperature, and it just works with the push of a button. It sits right on the countertop. Didn't have to call a plumber. It makes it really easy. Cove Pure is so easy to get pure water with the push of a button. Do your New Year's resolution, improve your health with real clean water. Right now, you can get $200 off for a limited time at covepure.com/Eric. That's COVEPURE, covepure.com/Eric, ERICK.
Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. I really do hope you guys had a great holiday. It's great to be back behind the microphone. I have missed it. And I have a hard time unplugging from work, and I really forced myself this time, and there's just a pile of stuff to get to. But I need to pause for just a second, and I need to go in the way back machine. How I got my start in radio was in Macon, Georgia, where I live. Right now, I'm still there. There's a talk station, WMAC. And local hosts got arrested in a crack house. They needed someone to fill in. I was a lawyer at the time and was doing political commentary on CNN. They called and asked if I could do radio. I wasn't sure that I could, but figured I would try it. And so I did radio from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and I'm not a morning person, was running redstate.com at the time, and was doing CNN, was on city council in Macon, Georgia as well. And I am not a morning person, but I did it. And what turned into a day, then became 2 days. They fired the guy, did 3 months. I got paid in an expired gift certificate to Outback Steakhouse. But while that was happening, Herman Cain, God rest his soul, he was determined to run for president, and his boss happened to hear my show, thought that it was my show, had no idea I was not a radio show host. I was friends with Rush Limbaugh. I was friends with Rush before I got into radio. Rush got me into radio. In fact, Rush lied through his teeth to say that I was a radio guy. And so they snapped me up on Rush Limbaugh's recommendation, not knowing that, I mean, to this day, y'all, I don't know how to work a board in radio. The little control board with the knobs and the levers, I have no idea. All I know is talk. And so I talked, and I got the job. And today, I am officially, the Eric Erickson Show is on in Macon, Georgia, my hometown, WMAC, as it has picked up the show. So yay me. My grocery store trips are never going to be the same again. Now, let me tell you about Vision Computers. If you are looking this year, you're looking at getting your company set up with the right technology. You need the right partner with that technology, and Vision Computers is who you should use. Call them at 404-COMPUTER, and it doesn't matter. We've got new stations now out in Washington State. We got new stations in Pennsylvania and Virginia. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. Vision will work with you. They can build you computers or upgrade your computers, but they can also take over your managed IT services. So you don't have to have an in-house IT guy, and you're not going to be dealing with AI. You deal with real people. So with Vision, all of your employees get a phone number they can call if they have a tech problem. 15 seconds or less, someone's going to answer the phone, navigate them through their problem, remote into your computer if necessary to figure out what the problem is, help them with email, help them with printer support, all of that over the phone, not an AI chatbot, but a human being. They answer faster than a Google search. So your employees can be really productive at their jobs, and Vision can keep them online. Call them today at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. I want to confess something. I actually am pretty terrible about daily Bible reading, and I need to get better. And one of the great things I have encountered is Glorify, and I'm glad to tell you about them. This episode's brought to you by Glorify. It's the #1 Christian daily devotional app, and it's helped me focus better on reading the Bible and diving into daily devotions and meditating on God's Word. And they've got great sleep meditations as well to help you wind down at night. I've enjoyed using the app, and I wanted to put it on your radar. I thought you might as well. You get full access to Glorify for just $29.99 for the entire year. That's Glorify's lowest price ever. You download the Glorify app now at glorify-app.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Feel closer to God this year with Glorify. It'll help you get focused on Scripture. Get full access all year for just $29.99 at glorify-app.com/Eric. I gotta spend a moment with you guys here on the progressive and Democrat reaction to Maduro. And let me set the stage for you here. Many Democrats, including those you're about to hear from, called on Donald Trump in his first term to take out Nicolas Maduro. And now he's done what they wanted. They're upset about it. This, for example, Congressman Dan Goldman hiding behind international law, no less.
Well, I'm not sure legally in court it will have any bearing, but it has a lot of bearing on the moral clarity, the justification, and the international reputation of the United States. Because what it reveals is that this pretext about trying to bring Nicolas Maduro to justice for his drug trafficking is total bogus, because the Honduran president was just pardoned, notwithstanding an actual conviction in U.S. court for the same thing. And not to mention that an MS-13 leader who was extradited to the Eastern District of New York, his case was actually just dismissed about 9 months ago so that he could be deported back to El Salvador, and where Donald Trump has a budding bromance with President Bukele. So it can't be that only narco-terrorism in Venezuela is worth battling, but narco-terrorism in Honduras and El Salvador is perfectly fine.
Except Venezuela's working with Hezbollah. And also, I'm starting to wonder, I wonder if Trump cut a deal with the guy he pardoned that he'll testify against Maduro. A little more from Goldman here.
The hypocrisy that we were just talking about also applies to this actual mission, this operation. Donald Trump is saying that Nicolas Maduro is such a terrible tyrant and an illegitimate leader who is violating all sorts of laws, including American laws, that we, the United States, need to violate our own laws and our own Constitution in order to remove him.
We've got a lot of precedent. Congress has never changed the precedent, so it's not exactly illegal. And by the way, this reliance on international law, only a bunch of morons rely on international law. International law is a figment of the imagination of the progressive elite. It's not really a thing. This is Chris Murphy, the hyper-progressive senator from Connecticut.
The rest of that article was a criticism of President Trump's early moves to saber rattle around regime change. Listen, there are evil, brutal dictators all over the world. That does not give the American president the right to invade those countries.
This wasn't an invasion. This was an arrest. John Fetterman, one of the very few making any sense out there from the left.
You know, Senator, I know you're not part of the Gang of Eight, but we're expecting a briefing from the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, as well as the Attorney General and the FBI. What does Congress need to hear from them? I feel like the administration has been quite transparent, but you guys are going to receive a classified brief in the Gang of Eight today.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody wanted to see about that video about that boat, and now we're not talking about that anymore. It's like, well, here, that happened. So, you know, for me, I think Democrats, we all used to describe him as a dictator or a tyrant or a terrible person, and it wasn't less than a year ago President Biden raised the bounty for $25 million less than a year ago, and now here. here we're in a better way to now. And that's why I think as a Democrat, just because it's a different party here, it's like I'm open to better opportunities for Venezuelan. And now I turn to a lot of the Venezuelans in our nation, and they're all celebrating these things. And we all recognize that kind of warm collectivism, socialism in Venezuela. No one really liked to live under that, and they had to flee that. And now here we have a way forward, and now there's a trial, a public trial, and now here. So that's the way it works.
Good for Fetterman for standing up on this. Internally, I am told quite reliably some of the Democrats are very frustrated with their progressive brethren for championing Maduro and condemning this. Why? Because Hispanic voters had been drifting to the right. Many Hispanic voters hated Maduro, even those who weren't Venezuelan. The Venezuelans in particular really hated him, and they're going to lock up the Hispanic vote for the GOP. I mean, Florida is off the table at this point. The Venezuelans were openly in the streets cheering. Although I will tell you, cynically, part of me thought, now these people are going to go home. But those people aren't voting. The citizens in this country are, and the Hispanic citizens in this country who are voting hate Nicolas Maduro. Now, one more here from Rubio. I mentioned I got sidetracked on Margaret Brennan here, who actually had the audacity, she's not very bright, asking Rubio why there weren't multiple military operations in Caracas at the time. Keep in mind, this was a law enforcement operation using the military. This was not an actual invasion.
I mean, it's very simple. You're not going to go in and wrap up. But you can't go. You're going to go in and suck up 5 people. They're already complaining about this one operation. Imagine the howls we would have from everybody else if we actually had to go and stay there 4 days to capture 4 other people. We got the top priority. The number one person on the list was the guy who claimed to be the president of the country that he was not, and he was arrested along with his wife, who was also indicted. And that was a pretty sophisticated and frankly complicated operation.
It was.
Yes, she wanted to go in and seize everybody. The howls and protests we would have had, absolutely bizarre here that we're in this. And by the way, one more, Jason Crow, who has become the model Democrat. He had been in the military. Jason Crow, the CNN loves this guy. MSNBC loves this guy. The New York Times loves this guy. They've profiled him as the model future Democrat. Listen to this guy.
Well, as a 3-time combat veteran who's seen the consequences of boots on the ground, when a 5-time draft dodger like Donald Trump talks about it and bangs war drums from the safety and security of his resort in Florida, I, of course, bristle. Because I learned a long time ago, Jen, that when folks in Washington bang the war drums and talk tough and pound their chest about what we're going to do and sending boots on the ground, they're not talking about their kids. They're not talking about their family. They're not the ones that are going to have to go do the thing.
We don't actually have any members of the military in Venezuela today. This is Marco Rubio with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press.
Okay, significant there. You say you will continue to seize boats when necessary. I want to ask you about boots on the ground. A lot of attention on that. The president was asked about the possibility of U.S. boots on the ground. He said, quote, "We're not afraid of it." How many U.S. forces are on the ground right now in Venezuela? Are there any?
We don't have U.S. forces on the ground in Venezuela. No, we don't have U.S. forces on the ground. Everyone knows. They were on the ground for about 2 hours when they went to capture Maduro. And I think what the president is saying is very simple, and that is, as president of the United States, he is not going to go around telling people what he's not going to do. He's not going to go around saying, I won't do this, I won't do that. Yes, I care about this issue, but I'll only go so far. He retains all this optionality. In the particular case you're citing, this was, in essence, at its core, a law enforcement function. Okay, the Department of Justice, dating back in the Biden administration, that had a $25 million reward for his capture. So we have a reward for his capture, but we're not going to enforce it. That's the difference between President Trump and everybody else. It's easy to make a wanted poster and say $50 million for the capture of Maduro, but no one takes that seriously because you're not going to do anything about it. President Trump did something about it.
Let me ask you.
He did something about it. We went in, we grabbed him, he was arrested, and he's now in New York. No Americans were killed, no equipment was lost. It had to be done, and it's been done. And I assure you, the people left behind in Venezuela now that are in charge of the police and everything else, I assure you, they're going to probably be a lot more compliant than Maduro was as a result of this.
Yes, they will be. The media has run several stories that Trump didn't like being taunted by Maduro. Maybe not. but Maduro needed to go. Now, by the way, that she does go on and ask him about who's in charge in Venezuela. Rubio is apparently now if they're not going to give it to Lane Kiffin, they got to give it to Rubio, I guess, the presidency of Venezuela.
Who is in charge? Are you running Venezuela right now?
Yeah, I mean, I keep people, fixating on that. Here's the bottom line on it is we expect to see changes in Venezuela. Changes of all kinds, long-term, short-term. We'd love to see all kinds of changes. But the most immediate changes are the ones that are in the national interest of the United States. That's why we're involved here, because of how it applies and has a direct impact on the United States. Okay, we are not going to be able to allow in our hemisphere a country that becomes a crossroads for the activities of all of our adversaries around the world. We just can't allow it. We can't have a country where the people in charge of its military and in charge of its police department are openly cooperating with drug trafficking organizations. We're not going to allow that. These things are direct threats to the United States, and we intend to use every element of leverage that we have to ensure that changes. The one I would point everyone to is that our military is helping the Coast Guard conduct a law enforcement function, which is not just the capture of Maduro, but the enforcement of our sanctions. We go to court, we get a warrant, we seize the boats, and we think this is tremendous leverage, incredible, crippling leverage, which we intend to continue to use until we see the changes that we need to see that are benefit to the American people. And by the way, we believe to the people of Venezuela as well.
But Mr. Secretary,
they're going to court. They're getting warrants. They're following the legal process. I'm sure Judge Boasberg is trying to find a way to undo all of this, but he hasn't so far. The fact of the matter is the government of Venezuela remains in place. Maduro is gone. His vice president is in charge. You should know, by the way, she's out today blaming the Jews, and I'm not making that up. The acting president of Venezuela says this was a Jewish plot, in large part because of the Iranian sympathies and Iranian bases they've given in Venezuela. It is nonsense. Tucker Carlson is out there saying has moved from the Jews to the gays. Now, he's conjured this mythology, Carlson has, that Maduro was hostile to gays and opposed gay marriage. There are multiple videos of Maduro hoisting rainbow flags and celebrating pride events in Venezuela. The kooks are out there. Rush Limbaugh used to call these people the keepers of odd knowledge society. We should stop trying to normalize the kooks. From Carlson to Jeffrey Epstein's friend Steve Bannon to Candace Owens to the anti-Semites out there who are echoing the acting president of Venezuela, who, by the way, you should know the reason she's doing this is because she doesn't have her own power base in Venezuela. Her power base was Maduro's power base. And the way that this administration is interpreting her actions and condemnations is that she's doing it to save face internally, but she's giving them what they want. Think about it. We just went in and snatched this woman off the ground. You would think that you would be able to do it a second time with this guy off the ground. You do it a second time with her. So she's clearly probably cooperating behind the scenes. It makes perfect sense. Why do we not just install the people out of power? Why not, what's her name, who just won the Nobel Peace Prize? Because she did not have a day one ground plan. I can tell you this from both the people I've talked to and from that which I've read in the press. Machado? She didn't have a ground game plan. They were willing to allow her to come up with a day one plan. She didn't. In fact, Rubio hinted with this also on Meet the Press.
Well, a couple things. First of all, Maria Corina Machado is fantastic, and she's someone I've known for a very long time, and that whole movement is. But we are dealing with the immediate reality. The immediate reality is that unfortunately, and sadly, but unfortunately, the vast majority of the opposition is no longer present inside of Venezuela. We have short-term things that have to be addressed right away. We all wish to see a bright future for Venezuela, a transition to democracy. All of these things are great, and we all want to see that. I've worked on that for 15 years on a personal level, both in the Senate and now as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. These are things I still care about. We still care about. But what we're talking about is what happens over the next 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, and how that ties to the national interest of the United States. And so we expect to see more compliance and cooperation than we were previously receiving. With Nicolas Maduro, you could not make a deal or an arrangement. Although he, by the way, was given very generous offers. He could have left Venezuela as recently as, a week and a half ago. There were opportunities available for him to avoid all of this, because now he's not someone we can work with. He suckered the Biden administration into stupid deals. He's made a career out of not keeping deals and figuring out how to save himself by buying time. And President Trump was not going to fall into that trap. So now there are other people in charge of the military and police apparatus there. They're going to have to decide now what direction they want to go. And
by the way, having Rubio out there as the point man on this is great because he's supportive of this. His eyes are on Cuba. His family are Cuban refugees chased out of Cuba. Cuba at one point contemplated the assassination of Marco Rubio, or at least the attempt of assassinating Rubio, among others. So he clearly has an interest in this. It destabilizes the Cuban regime, which was providing security to Maduro. Those Cuban security operatives are dead. Y'all, this was an astonishing, rapid success. China is out condemning it, saying we cannot have a world judge. Russia is condemning it. Have we not paid attention to what these countries are doing? The experts themselves are committing suicide of the expert class when it comes to this, talking about how these nations are going to be emboldened to do things. Have we not been paying attention to what Russia's already done? Essentially, what it comes down to is we're seeing the refrains of the Trump haters and the America haters all in a unified chorus of hate. Nicolas Maduro has exited the courtroom and headed back to prison. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. 877-973-7425 is the number. I'm very excited to tell you guys this hour of the program is brought to you by Van Allen Golf. I took their putter to Las Vegas. I had a blast. I putted great. My golf game sucks, though. But Van Allen Golf, it's nice to have a golf company as a sponsor. You should check out them at vanallengolf.com or text the word golf to 33777, and I'll send you their link, vanallengolf.com. Y'all, we're talking about the suicide of experts, and I got to say something here. When Donald Trump arrested Maduro, we had a number of experts, including Tom Nichols, writing in The Atlantic, talking about how this essentially opens the door for China and Russia to do as they please. The death of experts in this country and the death of expertise is a suicide. The Russians invaded Crimea during the Obama administration and invaded Ukraine during the Biden administration, and Joe Biden did nothing to them and whiffed on actually helping Ukraine. And you talk to the people behind the scenes, and yes, Joe Biden made a lot of promises he didn't keep. Vladimir Putin has attempted repeatedly to assassinate or blow up Volodymyr Zelensky. Last week, China surrounded Taiwan with ships in a demonstration of its power and said, as a New Year's message, Xi Jinping said that the reconciliation of the two countries is inevitable, and we're to believe the experts that Donald Trump arresting Nicolas Maduro and hauling him off to jail is somehow a breach that will enable these dictators to do what they want. If you really believe this, I need you to know you're an idiot. You are an unserious person if you believe Donald Trump's actions will somehow embolden two ruthless dictators to do the things they've already said they were going to do or did. What a bunch of morons. This is why we can't have nice things. You experts are so broken in your hatred for Donald Trump, you can't even realize it, and your expertise has been polluted by your hatred. Now, Old Glory Bank is my bank. They could be your bank, and they should be your bank at oldglorybank.com/Eric. Why should they be your bank? Because they are a highly innovative bank. They are by conservatives for conservatives, but take the politics out of Old Glory Bank. They're just really innovative bank. They've started an online bank headquartered in Oklahoma City. They are spread out across the country. You can do business with them anywhere in the United States. They're FDIC insured. You can do business banking. You can do personal banking. If you're a veteran, first responder, active duty military, have incredible discounts on their premium accounts. They've got CDs. You can do mortgages with them. Your kids can get a custodial account. You can even deposit cash. In fact, I didn't do great in Vegas when I went, but I did have some money and was able to deposit it thanks to their online app. Yes, a bank that doesn't have a physical location, I still was able to deposit cash. with their app on my phone. It was remarkable. OldGloryBank.com/Eric. OldGloryBank.com/ERICK.